I'm Felix Levine, and welcome to Unlike Me, where I sit down with fascinating people I have nothing in common with. And we're live. Peter, Zach, thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm super happy to have you here in studio. I know you're busy, so thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
What's something the world doesn't know about each of you? Peter, let's start with you.
Okay. You prompted me with this question, so I had some time to think. And it was given with like, what is not known. So I have something that is going to sound, to make me sound terrible, but I actually don't like music at all. And whenever I tell people this, they think it's really peculiar. I just think it's a waste of time. I don't listen to it. I don't really like it.
It's true.
That might be one of the best ones I've ever had.
Music.
Wait, so I guess why? Like,
I think it's one of my values is like utility. I think Zach shares this with me, and I find it doesn't move me forward. I don't learn anything, and I just don't find it bringing any value.
none. No song, no artist.
If I'm intoxicated or in an altered state of consciousness, I can enjoy it, but sober, absolutely not.
That's awesome. Zach?
Follow that up.
I love music.
Yeah. It's not for me.
Mine, I'll also sound a little bit crazy here. When I wanted to lose fat a few years ago, I went on a 28-day fast.
What kind of fast?
Just water, salt, and tea.
So you guys are both psychopaths.
A little bit.
Yeah, you gotta kind of be.
Yeah.
Water, salt, and tea. How was that experience?
It was good. I watched Top Chef during it, so I could kind of vicariously eat through the show.
How much weight did you lose?
After I started eating again, a little over 20 pounds.
An extreme intervention.
What was the reasoning? You're also like, it's not like, were you a bigger guy then?
I had a few pounds to lose.
Okay.
I decided that it was during COVID. One of the biggest reasons I eat is socially, going out with friends or spending time with friends. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, I eat for fuel. And if I was going to take out the kind of enjoyment piece of going out to great restaurants in New York, and I was purely doing it for fuel, it would also be a great opportunity to just get in the best shape of my life and try and do that when I was in New York by myself during COVID. So I also I find it very rewarding to do hard things for a period of time that I know pay off for me. So I would rather fast for 28 days and lose 20 pounds of fat than diet for a year and do the same thing. So that was my version of dieting for a year.
There you go. It doesn't surprise me you guys found each other.
I know. We have similar values.
Did you guys hit it off in the beginning when you first met?
Yeah.
And I've heard a little bit of the founder story from listening to some podcasts and interviews. But what was that first interaction between the two of you, and context for those who are not familiar?
Well, I'll start. So some of Zach's references, and then our first phone call, I just generally have a good measure of personality, and I knew I saw some of my values in him of just like truth, honesty, utility. Like, it's actually a measure of like hedonism is actually really like he's, if you look at what he did at Ray's, like to go to New Jersey to make a cookie, to leave with his pedigree, to leave a job to go do that, like that says a lot. So to me, it was pretty clear after our first conversation the type of person he was.
What do you think of Peter? How much did you know about him before?
When Peter got in touch with me, it was kind of in classic Peter fashion, where he sent me a one-line email saying, "Hey, your name's been mentioned to me. We should chat," when are you free?
No subject.
Probably not. And I knew of Peter at that point. But when I got on the phone with him, he was, I'd say, different than what I expected in the sense of he's very down to earth. If you didn't know he was as accomplished as he is, you would think that he's, feels like he's exactly on the same level as everyone else because he's incredibly humble in how he approaches things. He never assumes he has the right answer over someone else just because he's done it before. He really wants to get to the truth when he talks to people and when he debates ideas. And that was very clear to me from the beginning, which I think is a unique attribute of someone who has accomplished so much, because it would be so easy for him to say, I've done it before. I built RXBar. I know exactly what to do. Follow me and listen to me. But he very much embraces healthy discussion to try and find the best answer.
Did you ever have to, did that come naturally to you, or does one, after they have a big success, a big exit, have to force themselves to stay hungry and stay humble?
Humility is an important value of mine. I think it's perhaps both it's nature and nurture. But I think in business, the most important thing is like getting it right, and just making the best. Like, you're just a group of people making the best decision possible. So, you just need that. That's the most important thing, is making just good decisions. And so, the way to do that is to get as much information as possible, remove biases, So, but humility is something I regularly manage. Like, it's not a static thing, and it's just a battle with myself, I guess.
At the time that you met Zach, you had already sold RXBar, done well. Were you still are you still as motivated as you were during that time period? And if so, why?
I'm just like a different point in my career. I'm still motivated, but yeah, I'm still motivated. But it's just, I have a different risk profile because I have a family now. And, I was like 25, 26, like I was going to die from the company. So it's a little bit different risk profile, but I'm still motivated. Like, I love working. It's, get pretty narrowly interested in one thing.
Were there elements of when you first met Zach that you recognized a younger version of yourself? Or is that not? Or is that?
No, we're very different, actually. But I really respected his first venture, and it says a lot. Raise. That to me was like a really strong signal.
Will you just give a little bit of context for those not familiar about Raise, where you got it to? Because I'm familiar, but then also, I guess, then the contextual umbrella of when you then met Peter and how this came about.
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of a step back and kind of tell the story from my lens. So, all growing up, I thought I wanted to be an investor. Went to college to study finance, graduated and worked at a private equity firm. Did that for a few years, but during that time period, I started to realize that I actually didn't like it very much, and I wasn't particularly happy. And all during that period of time in finance, I was on the side getting really interested in health, nutrition, fitness, food, how to change your diet to build muscle, lose fat. And in that quest, I started to bake my own low-carb cookies in my apartment. And I got fed up enough with working in finance that I said to myself, like, hey, I would way more regret never trying something interesting than going and trying something and failing. So I ended up leaving my finance job, set up a kitchen in New Jersey started baking cookies, set up a website, and started shipping cookies around the country. That was called Raise. We made low-carb cookies. Did that for about a year and a half. Started with myself and a chef kind of get into the kitchen at 5 a.m. every day, making cookies. Then I would drive back to the city and in the afternoon and evening, work on the website and marketing. And after that year and a half, we ended up with a team of 15 or so people making cookies every day in the kitchen. We were doing a couple million of revenue per year on a run rate basis, but really maxing out the capacity at the kitchen we were at. So I started to try and bring the recipe to contract manufacturers to really scale production and try and make it into a retail business that you would see Raise cookies on the shelf in your store. When I did that, I realized the hard way that the recipes that we had created were physically too sticky to move through manufacturers' equipment, which led me to go out and try and raise money to reformulate and make it a more scalable, production-friendly business. When I did that, one of the groups of investors that I spoke with ended up saying, like, hey, we're not interested in your cookie business, but we want to introduce you to our friend Peter, essentially. Or Peter was talking to them on the side as well about wanting to get back into things, and they had mentioned they were talking to me, which is kind of how I got that outreach from Peter. So Peter and I met beginning of 2023, and over the first half of the year, we just got to know each other with, first talking over Zoom and then meeting in person. And by the summer of 2023, we had a working session where we came together and we said, if we are going to try and bring a product to market together, what do we want it to look like? And assumption was, let's go into the bar space because, Peter's the expert in bars. There's no better person to build a bar company with than Peter. So in the bar space, what do we think is missing and what are people looking for?
Can I just interject real quick? Was any part of you like, but I'm kind of crushing with these cookies?
Yeah, so at that time, it was kind of transitioning to a failed venture in the sense that to raise the money that I would have needed to reformulate and scale the business would have meant nearly selling the company. And it was either raise money and have not much left for me, or shut things down and kind of move on to something hopefully bigger and better. So ultimately, Raise was not a success in that way. It was an amazing opportunity for me to learn a ton for a couple of years and get my hands dirty in food, but it was not what was going to kind of build a long-term sustainable business without more capital than I think would have, or more capital would have been needed than I really had available. So at that point, transitioned to talking with Peter and saying hey, let's think about what we can do together. And when we took a look at the bar space, ultimately, when you think of a protein bar should be as much protein and as little anything else as possible. So as much protein, as few calories, and as little sugar as possible. That's what we wanted to create with what became David. A bar that had the most protein for the fewest calories and the least sugar of anything on the market. And when you take a look at bars that are on the market before David, they have about 20 grams of protein for 200 calories. What we have with David is 28 grams of protein, only 150 calories, and 0 grams of sugar. So that means in David, 75% of the calories come from protein, compared to the standard bar in the market, which has about 40% of its calories from protein. So to us, when we saw what was on the market before, we said consumers want as much protein and as few calories as possible because those are the top bars that are selling. But we think there's so much room to do it better than the current bars are doing it. And that's what attracted to us to this space and to building this product.
And then I heard you guys were cooking it up in the kitchen over the summer, basically together, and figuring it out, more or less.
More or less.
Yeah, so we officially started working on David in September of 2023. Brought together a team including an awesome food scientist and recipe developer with us, and set out to just create the best product possible. Went through hundreds of iterations over the course of 9 to 12 months before our first real production run at the end of August 2024.
What was the first flavor?
First flavor, we launched with 4 flavors initially. Our chocolate chip cookie dough right here was the first one we ever made. Our fudge brownie, cake batter, and blueberry pie. And then we just introduced 2 new flavors, peanut butter chocolate chunk and salted peanut butter.
So when did you guys know after the 100, like all these iterations, we're done? Or at least we're done for now?
You're never really done. It's an iterative process. Yeah. If you think you're done, you're screwed.
We're ready to launch the first 4.
Oh, that. Well, with this in mind, the way I think about it is like, is the product at 80% to our goal? And then I think that's when it's commercially acceptable. So I don't know what version it was, but when we thought, because it's important to take action, move, and learn. So within the mind that we are going to iterate and improve. So I'd say, I don't know. I mean, it's quite like mobile, but
yeah. And I think like part of the way to think about it is like, when do you know you have a product that you feel is clearly superior to what's out there? And at that point, something's better than nothing. And then our second recipe was better than our first, and our third is better than our second, and our fourth is better than our third. And like every batch is always going to be better than the last. And like Peter said, like if we think we're finished, that means in 2 years, someone else is going to come do what we did to them.
Did you have hesitations about getting back into the bar space?
No.
Why?
It was more hesitation going back to like war. I had a comfortable life. I had a baby on the way. It was more concern of like losing my freedom, but no, the actual game or the playing in the market and competing in this category, no concern. It was more of a personal sort of like, all right, back to like 60-hour weeks, back to like grinding, But the game of the business, like building a company, is really fun.
What did you learn about the RXBar experience and its successes that helped you when you started building David?
So the most important thing, I think Zach would agree, is around positioning. So it is totally natural for society to be confused around nutrition. And so what happens is people find these hacks, like paleo is a hack. My ancestors didn't eat it. It's not good. Gluten-free is bad. So like, it's very simple. There's all these patterns of hacks. And they're really just ideologies, and they're not really very sophisticated. And so RXBar was positioned around the paleo movement, the natural food movement, and then 6 years later, it's out of date. And so we wanted to position our brand around something more pragmatic, so like true nutritional facts, and use evidence-based on our ingredients. Like we're agnostic on ingredients, we're agnostic on trends. We're really focusing on like the facts of what the evidence suggests, and that position is one that I think will last for decades. It's not vulnerable, and so that was the most important lesson that we carried through to David.
How different? When did you sell RX?
October 6, 2017.
Remember that day pretty well, I imagine. Yeah. How different was the nutrition space even in 2017, or even when you began? You began in 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Than it is today. It feels like today there's a lot.
Yeah, so the category is always very competitive. It was
Right.
the same narrative. Like when Zach and I started, it was like, oh, there's so much competition. It's always been that. The big difference in 2012 it was the beginning of the natural movement where like if you just made something organic, you could be successful. And nutrition culture in general was very sort of unsophisticated. And I think for the past 3 years, with the help of like Dr. Attia and all these other thoughtful people, there's actually science coming to nutrition, and there's like a real understanding of it. Whereas, you know, back to the society being confused, like, you know, think about it, like 5 years ago, you were told eat 6 small meals a day. 2 years ago, you're told to starve yourself, you know? And so it was very confusing. And so I think for now, there's sort of a real consensus around some principles of nutrition.
Yeah. And I think, like, to what Peter said, over the course of time, over the past, let's call it 15 years, there have been so many trends in nutrition that what we wanted to do was create a product that was grounded in science in how we developed it. So when Peter started RXBar, it was paleo was the trend, but it's not actually eating what your ancestors ate that makes you healthy. It's the fact that if you cut out a lot of processed foods, you tend to eat fewer calories. Then keto came after. So paleo rose and fell. Then keto came and rose and was the craze, and keto fell too. But keto worked for a lot of people because it turns out if you cut out carbohydrates, you tend to eat fewer cookies and you eat less cake and you eat fewer calories, so you lose weight. So what we wanted to do though was go to like the core of the science, like what actually is underlying potential success of the paleo diet or the keto diet or intermittent fasting. It turns out that the reason a diet can work is because you do 3 things. You eat sufficient protein, you don't eat too many calories, and you minimize added sugar consumption. When you do those 3 things, those are the staples of a diet that helps you increase muscle and decrease fat. So those 3 principles are exactly what we designed our product to be optimized for.
I remember when I first saw these, like I had like some friends that were like, oh, like these are so, it was almost like this hype around it. And I was at the Aloe gym and they had them there in LA. And I was like, oh, let's see what this David hype is about. And I remember, and I was almost like, I didn't know you guys at the time. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know what was going on. And I tasted and I really, really liked them. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, I love them. And I thought, the first thing I thought is, why is it called David? Which I'm sure you guys get asked all the time, and I know you've answered it many times as well. But more importantly, what even stood out to me was this, like, gold wrapper that felt like a Willy Wonka, like, that was my first impression. How did you think of, you know, your mission from even the science level to then the branding side of it? Because it does take people aback, and at least it did for me when you first see it, because it also just looks, the bar itself, different than what exists. And was that a intentional effort?
You want this one?
Yeah. So there's a bit of a story here. When I grew up in the early 90s. There was a brand called PowerBar. And it famously had a gold package. The brand is dead in North America. And it had a ton of sort of, call it brand equity. It very much like, if you're going to go training really hard, you eat a PowerBar. It was difficult to eat, hard to chew. It had this like mythological, and it was the creator of the category. And I felt it was like a sad story to see this brand die. And for me as a consumer, I always like, as a kid, I was like, oh, can I get a PowerBar? And so there's an emotional thing for me. And when we were doing the RXBar deal, there's a bunch of different bidders, and one of them was Post Holdings, and they had this. They acquired PowerBar, and it was sort of struggling. And one of the deals on the table was like merge RXBar and PowerBar and build a portfolio of PowerBars. It's a great trademark. Like, it's a great name.
Yeah.
And then it's actually, so when my non-compete was up, the first phone call I had was to Post, which is the bell ring brands, to see if I could do a deal. And of course, normal big companies never worked. And I actually owe Zach a lot because I was like, hey, Zach, because that was the origin. I was like, should we do this? Because I had a little bit of PTSD from naming. RXBar had a lot of name problems, so I really wanted a good name. And he said, deal wasn't happening. And I was like, Zach, should we do this? And he's like, let's just do it and create a brand. And so some of the DNA in David is actually origins is Power Bar. So kind of like two components of our DNA would be like our muse is Peter Attia, and then our another part of our DNA is Power Bar. So if you look at the rigor and this like the sort of the approach to the product, it's very Peter Attia driven, and then if you look at some of our visual identity, it's very Power Bar, so that's the origin of the gold. And if you look at the category, so the natural movement caused a bunch of, and RXBar was a part of this. The whole category is defined by flavor. So if you look at the category, it's like it's the color first is its flavor, and then the brand is a secondary color. And so it's actually incredibly confusing to shop because it's like a kaleidoscope. It actually looks like the natural like craft beer set. If you ever go like craft beer, you're like, Jesus, it's like yelling at me. And so the nutrition bar category is like that too. And so one of the strategies of ours was like to have a single brand color to be the primary color. And there's a little retro feel to it. It's something we could own. And there's a lot of equity, like value in the meaning of gold, right? High standards, it's premium. So that was the origin of the strategy. And in general, you just like, you need to be contrarian with like, you can't just follow others. And so if you look at our design aesthetic and architecture, it's very different than the market, and it's paying off.
What was some of the PTSD from the RXBar naming?
So our early adopters were CrossFitters.
Okay.
When Jared and I started that business, it was like, hope we can build a $10 million like brand in CrossFit. And in that culture, the language of RX means to do something of high standards. So you do a workout as prescribed. So in the language of that culture, you'd be like, hey, did you do the WOD? Did you do it RX? And it was a sign of achievement, so high standard. And so it was a good name for that community. But however, in the broader culture, it means prescription.
Right.
And so it's like, wait, is this like for a colonoscopy? Like it actually was super confusing. So we had a name problem. And that's why in our design, you see it's minimized and our ingredients are the priority. Like our architecture says ingredients, like people don't even know the name sometimes. So this time around, we wanted to make, like, I really wanted to make a name we're proud of that had tons of symbolism, tons of meaning and values that both Zach and I stood for.
So then David is in line with our brand values from the beginning of discipline, intelligence, and beauty. And if you think about, like, we try and take those values in how we approach our product creation, and those are the same values that David, the statue, the sculpture embodies.
What was the initial reception when you guys launched?
To the name?
To everything.
I think the most common response and refrain that we saw was people just saying like, whoa, 28 grams of protein, 150 calories, 0 grams of sugar, and saying we've never seen that before. And people either saying this product is exactly for me, or people having a repulsion towards it. And I think luckily there are many more who are saying this product is for me, and it has really seen strong product market fit with folks who are looking to get sufficient protein without overeating calories.
Is this mostly, would you say the brand is mostly made for the people who are very conscious about their protein intake? For example, like to most, like if you understand the space, you understand how impressive this is. I think the average person might not understand the difference between 24 grams of protein to 150 calories versus 28 grams of protein, 250 calories. Did you care about that? Were you intentionally trying to target the people that are very, forward facing with their protein intake?
Yeah, we think about like who were we designing the product for? And there's your set of early adopters, and then there's the mass market beyond that. And primarily, like, goal number one is let's create a product that, like, our early adopters are saying, thank God this is finally here. And to us, this is the product that they are saying, like, thank God this is finally here to, because, protein is the most essential macronutrient for, one, building muscle, and two, losing fat. And, 75% of Americans are trying to lose fat. So if you can create a product that is very well suited to that goal, then it's one that will resonate with the market.
What was your approach to scaling? As in, did you want to hit certain metrics before you kind of advanced and grew the business? How did you kind of view from launch to?
Yeah, I mean, the general strategy is you want to find product market fit, determine that. You don't want to grow if your product's not ready. So the first sort of phase is like figure out if we have product market fit. And I mean, we knew pretty right away that we did, both anecdotally and then, month over month growth. You can measure it different ways, but like the best way is like, when you have it. If you're questioning it, you don't have it. And then from there, you want to just build, add revenue and because like matching supply and demand can be very difficult. So you just don't want to take on too big of like revenue chunks. So I don't know if I'm answering the question very well, but it's brick by brick, and just don't get over your skis.
Because I felt like, at least from my interactions with the brand, it was like I had heard about it, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing it fucking everywhere, and I'm like, who the fuck is David? Like, that's my first question, right?
I think like what you seeing it everywhere was a testament of like, I think with Day Job, we nailed the branding and the identity and the differentiation. So it just sort of stuck rent free in people's mind. Like, there's a lot of tension in the branding. It's novel. It's a product super differentiated. So I think, and there wasn't anything new in protein bars for a while. And then on top of it, the brands existing in protein bars are not very, like, you're not going to buy a t-shirt from any of them. Like,
yeah. And I think like the reason that it became that so much awareness was drawn to David is because of what I had mentioned around like 75% of Americans want to lose fat. And more people know that the way to lose fat is to eat more protein, because protein is more satiating than any other macronutrient.
Yeah.
And more satiation means fewer calories. Fewer calories means fat loss. So we created a product that helps 75% of Americans achieve their goal in a way that no other product in the space comes close to. Yeah. And that's what created that virality around like people telling their friends about it, or people making that TikTok video that would get 1 million+ views because it was so differentiated for a goal that people actually care about.
What part, though, do you feel like the branding versus the product played in the virality aspect? Like, do you think it was the hardcores that understood that the product was just awesome, or was it maybe even the branding first and then the product? Because like for me, right, like I hear about it, then I drive from Manhattan to Brooklyn every day, so I'm over the Manhattan Bridge where you guys had that big billboard for like the last 4 months. I don't think it's there anymore. But
Boston? Yeah.
on going into Brooklyn on the Manhattan Bridge.
Sounds like someone gave us a free billboard.
Yeah. There we go. I'm certain of it. But it was like, for me, it was almost like, oh, I kind of want to be part of this movement. And then I understood how good the product was. Which were you kind of intending to do first, especially for new customers? Was it to get them introduced to the product, or the brand first?
Yeah, I mean, I think Peter and I feel the same way about this, that like product is the most important thing. and creating a great product that people want for the product itself is the primary goal. And then you support it with compelling marketing and compelling branding. And if branding and marketing is all you have, you're a fad. And if product is what underlies everything, you're a real trend.
And brand just takes time. Like, it takes decades to build a brand, really.
Do you guys feel like you have a brand?
Yeah.
So
But I don't think it has much value yet. It's just time. Time is such an important part of the equation, because you have to deliver every single day, be super consistent for a long period of time.
How do you feel like you deliver every single day right now? Is it just
quality product, meeting expectations, delivering or exceeding expectations? Yeah.
What's your guys' dynamic at work? Who takes on what role? Not even just in like a work sense, but in a personality sense as well.
I'd say like Peter is the visionary. He's, if we were to use an analogy, we'd say Peter says, let's steer the ship to Asia. And then I say, all right, we're going to land at this port on this day, and we're going to go this far each day and make sure that happens. So, Peter's our CEO, I'm our president. Like, Peter kind of directs company strategy, and I make sure it gets done in the most effective way.
Yep. So standard, like, CEO, president, sort of, or COO relationship, our role responsibility, and then, yeah, I should be always thinking about the future, and then he should be making sure that the trains are on time.
What do you think is the most impressive quality about Zach?
Two things. The ability to learn. He has a violent learning curve. It's really impressive. He can learn anything very quickly. And so that's probably one of the most impressive. And the second thing is just reliability. Total trust. Nothing falls through the cracks. And his ability to organize, like, hold a lot of information. Like, we didn't make any mistake on our launch, which is really hard. And we had a pretty big launch. So
what was, I guess, internally the launch? What did that look like? And why did it go, if you had to reflect, why did it go so smoothly?
I think because of Zach, but you're organizing ingredient. We're not like writing POs to somebody to go make the product. Like, we're developing everything, a lot of custom stuff. So there's just a lot of complexity and a lot of dependencies, and it's very easy for one thing to fall through the cracks, right, and you're fucked. So.
Did you sleep during launch or?
Yeah. There's actually a funny story about the website. I'm like, I'm not in the day to day, so I'm like, day before launch, I'm like, slept pretty good. Come in.
He hasn't slept.
I'm like, are you serious? I felt terrible.
Which is funny too, because like I'm typically like very regimented about my sleep, and so the day of launch like came in and was like, I haven't slept in 2 days. And like,
yeah.
I don't know. I was just so excited. Like, it was also partly my excitement. Like, this is the biggest thing I've ever been a part of. And like, I have a lot of pride in it. And to reveal what we had been working so hard to for a year, and to have it be that day, like, I don't think I would have been able to sleep that night anyway.
How did you build hype for that day? Or in retrospect, what do you think worked and maybe could have worked better? It sounds like it was pretty successful overall, but
I think three things were really important for building the hype. The first was our owned media channels. So that's Peter, myself, and the David launch page website. When we announced the brand and the product and the macronutrient profile, it immediately like had legs and people started talking about it, partly because it was, the story of Peter bringing a new brand to life, and partly because of like the differentiation of the product itself. We started building, multi-thousand, tens plus thousand people email lists just from that those posts on LinkedIn and our own social medias about David.
Yeah, and we did the first post the week of Natural Food Expo West. So like everyone in the natural food world is getting together in one area, and then we post about it. So like that information is getting just shared, preparing buzz in just the industry alone.
Were you, because you had the previous success, like trying to keep it under wraps that you were part of this project before launch, or was it known?
Well, once we put a flag in the ground, we made it public.
Yeah, when we initially were kind of keeping things a little more close to the vest, but then come February 2024, we started to just put together our hiring plans for putting together more of the team that we wanted to hire 2 months before we launched. And part of building a great team is attracting the best talent. And to attract the best talent, we wanted to announce to everyone what we were doing and show why it was compelling. And the great thing is it led to amazing applicants for us to, build a great team. And those first posts were in February, which kind of, at that point, cat's out of the bag. Like everyone, if we're going to build hype around it, we have to, talk about Peter's background and why it'll help make David successful.
How many people are at the company now?
16.
Yeah. I think with the launch too, I think we did a good job of like just teasing every 3 months. I think as we got closer, we announced a fundraise, and then what would you do differently about the launch?
Yeah, so I guess I'll finish with like what we did. So part one was our own channels publicizing. Step two was we aligned with who we consider like the best possible partners for the brand. So Peter earlier mentioned like who we designed the product for effectively. Like when we were designing this product, we said, we want this to be a product that Dr. Peter Attia, Dr. Andrew Huberman, and Lane Norton, who are like 3 super influential, respected people in the health, fitness, science space, would want to eat. And as we developed the product, we went to them and we said, hey, we have our first samples. Like, we think you guys will really enjoy the product that we're creating. And they ended up really enjoying the product we were creating, and they felt like it was really aligned with how they view nutrition as well from like a science-based, evidence-based perspective. And they were interested in being involved with the brand. So part of our lead up to launch was them mentioning on their social channels that David was coming, which drove a lot of traffic as well. And then the third piece was we had a trial production run before our full real production run that would be product that we sold. And at that trial run, we had a bunch of bars. We did a batch of each flavor, and we just decided to give away 5,000 sample packs.
Oh.
And, it's
where and how?
We posted on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and we just said, sign up here, give us your email, your name, your phone number, and we'll send you the first 5,000 people. We'll send you a free sample pack. And that was the week before launch when people received the product. So if you kind of felt like all of a sudden David was everywhere on your timeline, it was probably the week before launch when 5,000 people with no strings attached got a product that we feel like is changing the protein bar space, and people started posting about it, and you kind of felt like if you didn't have it, you were missing something, and you needed to get it the next week when we launched.
How do you guys approach the fundraising process, or how did you approach the fundraising process in your latest raise? Why, when, who do you want to bring on board?
I'll go, well, why? Because we needed working capital. Because we expected to do some big numbers. And then who, we didn't do a process or anything. We wanted it's sort of like a wedding invite. You got to draw the line somewhere.
We just moved the mic. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it's sort of like a wedding invite. You got to draw the line somewhere. And so there's a fund that has been very good to me. That's been a good partner and demonstrated that. So, and then the rest of the strategic, our muses, I'll call them, Huberman, Attia, Lane Norton, and that's really it. And then myself. I got to put money. I have to have risk on for it. So
Yeah.
I think it's a bad signal if I didn't.
If I told you, when were you working your private equity job? 7 years ago? 6 years ago?
Fewer, probably 4 years ago.
Shit. If I told you 4 years ago that you'd be sitting here today, what would you have said to me? Go to a hospital?
I mean, I would say it's exactly what I would want to happen. And I couldn't think of a better place to be. Ultimately, I love being in a position to build a brand like David. It's exactly aligned with my personal interests from the perspective of, like, if I go home at night and I'm alone and I have an hour to kill, I'm on YouTube watching videos about how to change your diet to lose fat and build muscle, or like how to change your fitness routine to optimize it, or like how to make healthier recipes of unhealthy food. And to be able to make that part of my job is personally very interesting to me. And then from a professional perspective, the ability to create something special like David and to kind of really like validate myself as someone who can do this and is good at what he does, and that kind of people can look to say, like, yeah, like he's good at this, like that drives me a lot. And I think, I'm in a position to fulfill both my personal and kind of like higher level career motivations at the same time.
Do you feel fulfilled?
Yeah, very. But it's not done yet. So I'm part of the way there.
So I had Brian Kelly, if you guys are familiar, the points guy. He was my last guest, who sold his company a little while back. And I remember he told me the story of the day he sold it and staring at his phone. What was October 6th, 2017 like for you? Was it a joyful day? Was it, I made it? What were the feelings?
The feelings were, it was another day at work. Like, it was Friday. I have a job to do. Didn't really celebrate, to be honest. And I wanted to make sure, it wasn't a distraction. I mean, I got a ton of attention, which I didn't actually expect, but the number was public. So that was quite, unfortunately it had to be public. And I as a leader, I just didn't want to, I didn't think it was appropriate to celebrate. So just honestly, I continued down to like a normal day, talked to some media, and then went home, and then I just had dinner with my family. And the thing is, like, it wasn't for me a signal of it's over. It was just like a new chapter, and I still had to continue my job. So I was sensitive to how, I don't know. It was just another day for me.
Did you not I mean, I can understand why, especially if you're trying to,
Like, I didn't leave my job, right? Like, it was a liquidity event for me as a shareholder.
Yeah.
But I was still the CEO. And so I think as a founder, like, you can have all these different roles that get kind of commingled. Like, you're a shareholder, you're a founder, which kind of actually doesn't mean anything, and then you're an employee. And so I was an employee, and I had a job, and I took that seriously. And so I didn't like to kind of mix up those two different roles. And so I always really did a good job separating myself as a shareholder and then myself as an employee.
But you as a human, fuck the employee for a second. Like, you worked your whole life, right? And a lot of like people now, and the venture world and founders, like a lot of them, their dream is to exit and sell. Like, and even if you're a humble guy, there has to be a moment where you're home or in bed where you're just like, damn, like, I don't know, this is something.
Yeah,
I don't know if you had
it. I don't know. I was fulfilled, but it took time to process it, actually. Like, it wasn't an immediate thing.
When did you process it? Or finish processing?
I think I probably over the next 2 years, a journey of sort of understanding the new life and financial literacy and just having that much wealth took that much time. Like, I still thought I was just a normal guy that, like, you know, I didn't think anything of myself differently, and then all of a sudden you get treated differently, and then you start to realize, like, oh, it's actually a real accomplishment. Like, I'm not measuring myself to others, so it's all relative to me. And it's also like, yeah, money's nice and everything, but it wasn't my main motive. Like, I just wanted to build a great company and build cool things.
I don't know if you ever saw the founder of Loom after he sold his company was talking about how lost he was. And how he just, like, I think he like kind of disappeared for a while because he just almost felt like he just really didn't know why, his purpose. Did you ever have any moments like that?
So much of my identity was, you know, I was the RX guy. So when I actually left my job, which was about 18 months later, and then, like, my calendar was sort of empty for, like, the first time in 5-6 years or whatever, there's a bit of, like, what do I do with my time? And then in that journey that actually leading to David, I've tried different things, and so much of actually my identity or where my fulfillment comes through my work. So I wasn't really actually happy until I found my next job, which is David. Like, I had started a fund, I dabbled in all this stuff, I was an investor advisor. It all sucks. Like, it wasn't a job. It was just, you know, you don't really work when you're an investor. And so I needed the responsibility. So I guess I wouldn't say, I don't like the word lost, but I was searching for my next thing. And maybe I didn't know where to go necessarily, but I knew I wanted to, like, go back to building something. And
you mentioned family.
Mm-hmm.
You have a wife and children?
I have 8-month-old.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long have you been with your wife or dating?
3 years.
Does a partner like that kind of help the transition phase? Or
it helps to garner against, I think, obsession. Like, she helps me to make sure
if she wasn't there, Peter would be at the office till 10 p.m. every night.
Oh yeah, like, if I didn't have her and my family, I would, you know, just be old and rich and by myself, like, for sure. Because it's addictive. Like, it's the feedback loop, like, right? Like, you make a decision. It's like you're just getting high all day. And so, you know, it's fun. So, like, we always talk about, like, work life, and, like, this is fun. It's not, I actually don't have any fucking hobbies. Like, this is what I do. So if I didn't have her, I probably have a really imbalanced life. So very grateful for that.
What about having a child?
It's the best.
That's gotta...
Do you have one?
I don't. But I feel like for a personality like you, that has to change you.
Yeah. It's basically like, it's Dave, like, parenting is awesome. So I love parenting. So I'm really into it. And so, like, the problem I have right now is, like, between David, my family, like, I got nothing. There's nothing. I have no capacity for anything.
So who cares?
I guess it's not a problem, but yeah, you're right. It's not a problem, but it's amazing.
What do you love about parenting?
I love, I think the theme would be progress. Yeah. I like growth and progress, and, you know, you see your actions, and you get the results. And the second thing, I just love actual responsibility. I found it makes me better. So so the responsibility I actually love.
What changes have you seen in him since he's become a father?
I'm not at the office. I leave at 5. My nickname's 9 to 5 Peter.
No, I mean, like, Peter, Peter loves work and loves purpose, and like hedonism's not attractive to Peter, and I don't think he's changed because of being a father. I think it's like just it's like another even more enriching part of his life. And I think similar to how like when we started David, he became happier because he had an additional like meaningful goal to work towards. He is now even happier than he was before because he has like what to him is the most meaningful purpose in addition to his like career work. He has what he's building with his family.
Outside of David, where do you personally find the most joy?
I'm the general like purpose and joy from my life, I think, comes from like a lot of the similar places as Peter. Like, I got married in September.
Congratulations.
So my wife and I are newlyweds and enjoying that. The week before launch of David.
Great timing.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of...
That's a great like span of 2 weeks
Yeah,
or 10 days.
Exactly.
He finds joy in suffering, actually. Actually. And I do too.
Yeah, you guys strike me as
So,
those kind of guys.
I mean, I like, I wake up and I work out to challenge myself physically and mentally and feel better. And then I go to work and try and accomplish as much as I can. And then I go home to my wife, who these days is asleep when I get home. But it's great. I love it.
Does she understand? I mean, I'm sure she understands you. I'd hope so. She's your wife. But do you think that, similar question to Peter, like, what is it about your wife that makes her your wife and complementary to you?
She's a really good balance to me. We're very different.
She's normal.
Yeah, she's super normal. And she, she's very, I'm very hard and she's very soft. And
Intolerant. Intolerance, my favorite word.
I'm not tolerant and she's very tolerant. I like to lead and she likes to follow. And we work really well together.
What's the plan? Is the goal do another RXBar type of exit? Is it, do you even think that way?
We put our energy towards making the best products possible. And that's where we spend all our time. So like best products, we want to optimize every part of our company, every function. But I would say there's like 3 versions of the future. One is death. The other one is we go find a home for someone else and fit into a portfolio, AKA get acquired. And then 3, you go public and diversify revenue with multiple brands.
Sounds simple enough.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, let's start with David first. How do you want people to remember or know, let's just say, the brand when it comes into their mind?
That we create the best products possible if you're looking to increase muscle and decrease fat. So whatever category we play in, so right now it's bars, we create the bar that is the best unequivocally for increasing muscle and decreasing fat while tasting delicious.
For you, knock on wood, a lot of life ahead. How do you hope to be remembered both, in a very long time, as an entrepreneur and a human being?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what motivates me in my career is being able to build something to a level where people can look at me and say that I'm great at what I do. And, there are like external markers that cause people to do that, but more so like those aren't as much the end goal to me, and more the end goal is like that validation to myself and kind of proxy test of others thinking of you that way as like I'm very good at what I do, and just kind of wanting to create something that can validate that.
What about you?
Can you repeat the question?
When it's all said and done, in a long, long, long time, how do you want people to remember you both in the workplace, but also as a human being?
Like when I'm in the ground?
Deep in the ground.
I don't really care. I don't know. I just want to be viewed as an honest, generous, hardworking man that did what he said and was, generous. I don't know. I do like, I've gone back and forth of like, I want to be sort of like external motivation. I want to be like the best bar entrepreneur. I want to beat the competitors, but I'm trying to mature above that. And, I do think like legacy wise, it would be great to remove a lot of sugar from the American diet, remove a lot of calories from the American diet. I think changing the daily recommended allowance on protein would be a cool initiative. I do think like, turns out if you just eat protein, the rest works out. Like you don't get diabetes, you don't really overeat calories. So I think if we could put a big imprint on nutrition culture and help drive a lot of awareness to that, I think that would be a good legacy.
I think so too. Before I let you guys go, where can most people listening around the country, are you guys international?
No.
Is that on the horizon?
No.
Great. Where can everybody in this country purchase David bars?
We are available on davidprotein.com, available on Amazon, and we are adding new stores consistently. So we recently launched in vitamin shops nationwide, recently launched in Central Market down in Texas, adding a great new grocery partner in the Northeast very, very soon. And I think in the near future, over the course of the year and into next year, you'll see a lot of other locations carrying David soon.
Well, I want to thank both of you guys for taking the time. It means a lot to me. I also, just in researching your story, listening to you guys speak both previously and also today, really motivational and also just like good humans. You know what I mean? And I think that oftentimes in this like rat race that you guys are both familiar with, that can get very lost. So I'm rooting for you guys, and I mean, I have no doubts, but keep doing what you guys are doing, and I appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.